Carol Channing turns the everyday experience of living into something exciting. Wherever she goes, whatever parts she plays, she both dazzles and delights, as I think you can see in these Hirschfeld cartoons of her. Times he's caricatured Carol Channing. But what is it like to live behind that enormous smile? What kind of courage does it take to risk the recreation of a role like that of Dolly Levy in Hello, Dolly? 14 years after the launching of the original to record acclaim. Well, one way to find out, I think, would be to give a big welcome at this time to our guest, Miss Carol Channing. Have a seat and a microphone. You can put that under your Skype there. I know you do all this time. Gee, you're on a 25-city tour of Dolly.
For 1 year.
For a year. I've heard of out-of-town runs, but that's something. But of course, you're delighting audiences every place.
Yeah, and New York is only one of the cities. March 5th we open in New York, but it's only one of them. Then we go right on to Washington and all.
Oh, I see. So it's really a tour, and it's not doing everything before and then going to New York.
No. We just took this year out of our lives to do it. See, the Houston Grand Opera asked us to do it, but I don't want to get off the subject. I take it away. I mustn't do that now.
No, that's all right.
Oh, is that all right? Sure. Well, they asked us to do it. You know, they did Porgy and Bess as the great American opera, and indeed it turned out to be.
Yeah, that's right. On a tour basis like that.
That's right, and it was on. It won all the awards everywhere, upset the whole theatrical world. So we were very honored when they asked us to do Hello, Dolly as one of the memorable American musical comedies. Terrific. So they do it with great care, and that's what we're so proud of.
Apparently so, from what I've been reading about it and everything. It's really just smash every place.
Yes, Jerry Herman, you know, did the music and lyrics, and he's our overall artistic director. So we're religiously faithful to the original, and critics that I trust tell me, they say, isn't it funny, I didn't know the original was so far from all the other Dollys I've seen since.
Right, in other words, it's going back and seeing it as it was done the first
they're all good, but the original is quite different.
Sure. Now, I know you knew it was successful, and obviously you were successful in it, but was it scary to recreate it again 14 years after you did it the first time?
Hugh, isn't it a funny thing about any creative endeavor? If you put it down for a while, time alone seems to mellow it. And it ages, and it gets easier. And now
Is it easier this time than
much because I'm doing it's effortless. Dolly, I used to reach hard for her character and try and laugh about her, and I thought she was heaven. I thought she was hilarious. I thought I'd jump out the window if I couldn't play the part. And then slowly, as the years went on, just not playing her. Have you noticed that with so many characters?
It just steeps, sort of.
It steeps. It steeps like good tea, and it brews. And now her esophagus tube is my esophagus tube, and she has become a part of my system and my metabolism.
That's why it really soaks into you, so you partly become Dolly in that way.
Do you know that happens with every piece of... Now, painters tell me that if they put down a painting and just forget it, and then, or a writer, and then pick it up years later, the thing has
something goes on working.
It goes on working, time alone, and it crystallizes so that you must pick up work that you've started when you were younger.
And you never forget. I guess you're always kind of working on it or something. That's marvelous.
You must be, sleeping on it, that's it.
I should mention now that as this program is aired, you'll be in Denver with Dolly, and then 2 weeks after that in New York, I think, is this.
Yes, that's right.
Right,
that's right.
Now, this takes an enormous amount of energy to do this, particularly when you're moving around from one place to another and not staying put like in New York. How do you budget your energy, or is it just something that you like doing so much that you don't notice that it could be tiring? I think it'd be tiring for anybody to do.
You know, Hugh, for one thing, see, I don't do the dishes. You know, I mean, that helps. If you go directly after your goal and zero in on it, You don't do anything excess then.
Then, in other words, it's more efficiency that you gain as you get more experience.
I think you're right. It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
It gets to be a bicep, and finally it gets so that there's no effort to it. I don't know any different. I've done it all my life.
And you're not wasting energy. You're putting all your energy into what you're doing.
Into one, yes.
That's probably the secret.
I wonder, because so many people will tell you, I remember my father used to tell me, and people that I respect would say, oh, well, the trick is don't ever change occupations. Just stay at it all the time. And all you can do is get more and more experience and learn more and more, and then your muscles become a part of your work, and it's no effort.
Okay, now you brought up two things that are good. Your father was an enormous influence on you, wasn't he? Didn't he?
Tremendous. He still is. He's the pillar of our lives. I named my son Channing Lowe after my father, which is, I wasn't thinking, really, Hugh. I mean, now he's Chan Lowe, and my dad said he had no choice but to open a laundry. And what? But you know, that's how children get those names. Their mothers just don't think. But I wanted to name him after my father.
Right. So he has been an influence for you.
A tremendous influence, and my husband feels the same way. So we're yes.
Now your husband Charles Lowe is your manager also.
Yes.
And everything. How do you work that with him? I guess it's great having him sharing in your work and everything.
Well, he was always television producer for Burns and Allen, and Gracie said to me, "Well, he is now that's the best man in his field. Don't you spoil him." He just carried Gracie on his hands. He adored her. Well, of course, every comedian adores Gracie. She's enshrined in our family.
Oh, sure.
So George and Gracie, he just loved them. So Gracie said, "Don't let him stop doing that." So I didn't. I just let him go on carrying me on his hands.
Now, with your marriage and career overlapping to the extent that it does, where do you get the chance or the time to be alone, if it's necessary ever for you to be alone? Do you need that? I mean, the kind of privacy that most humans...
I get rest.
You do?
Oh, yes, I do, and I am alone, and I have time alone, and then I have my son, and we get alone together and all that. So, no, I do get actually, I think everybody's life has its drawbacks and compensations, and mine has such tremendous compensations. Mostly the compensation is I'm doing what I want to do more than anything in the world. And George Burns keeps telling me, you realize that we are only 10% of the population? How lucky George Burns and those of us who are doing the work that we wanted to do from the time we can remember.
Yeah.
This was what we would die to do.
Right.
And aren't we fortunate?
Yeah, I think anyone's fortunate who's doing what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of sad.
It is.
But the other thing you brought up was the business of staying in one occupation. If something ever happened, God forbid, that you couldn't perform, is there anything that you prepared in the way of other activities that you would go on and be busy with that, or would you need to perform always?
Well, when I couldn't get a job in the theater, Hugh, I used to paint, but only people. From the neck up. Oh, well, I've sometimes painted full bodies, but it was the same thing for me. I would meet somebody and say, I can't stand it. This character is so tremendous. What'll I do with her? I've got to get her off my chest, or him. And I didn't have an audience to play them to. And so I would paint them, and people would say, oh, I know that girl. You know, I was working in Macy's at the time, and they'd say, oh, she works on the second floor. Oh, I know that man. That's our, you know, and I would just paint these wonderful people.
And that's something, do you have any time to do it now, or are you...
No, and besides, I'm doing it on the stage. I get to paint them with my body, my face, my voice, you know, and it's the same thing exactly.
It is. It's creativity, really.
That's what it is. That's all it is. You were asking me, I've got to tell you about my father. You were asking me about him because, you know, you get a girl started on her father. And wherever I go throughout the world, now when I tour in Australia, in Melbourne, Sydney, in Hong Kong, people say to me, I look at this tremendous auditorium and I think, how am I going to reach these people with this show? How will we get it through? And someone comes along and says, do you realize that your father's feet were standing exactly where your feet are now?
What, in a lecture? Or?
Yes, he was a Christian Science lecturer. I forgot to tell you.
That's I knew he did lecturing.
Yeah, he was a Christian Science lecturer and teacher, and he was also a newspaper man all his life, but when he embraced Christian Science was when I was born, and so they used him in newspaper capacity.
So your father's presence is really with you all the time?
All the time, and I stood there and thought, well, Daddy, if you could reach them, I could. And you know, it gives a person such confidence. I wish everybody had somebody who had gone just before them, wherever they go. The Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, they say, do you realize that your father stood right there? And I think, well, there, my feet are right there, and he did it, and he reached them, and he got the message through. I know I can do it there.
Well, I'm glad he did. I'm glad you followed in his footsteps, so to speak. Carol, thank you much. Good luck with the tour. Okay.
Thank you.
If more people with the incredible talent and appeal of Carol Channing were in show business, what a business it would be. You know, another aspect of show business, and one that I think is particularly commendable, is that if you've got the energy and the will to keep working, nobody will tell you you're too old.